We often credit the actors, directors, and scripts for the success of a great action movie. But the truth is, many of the stories that thrill us, the ones with heart-pounding fights and unforgettable scenes, almost didn't make it to the screen the way we know them. Some of them nearly didn't make it at all. Behind the curtain of Hollywood lies a phase most audiences never see: post-production. This is where chaos is cleaned up, tone is rebuilt, and in some cases the entire story is rewritten. It's a place where broken footage finds new life, where pacing is sharpened like a blade, and where failed scenes are recut into fan favorites. These films weren't saved by reshoots or rewrites on set. They were salvaged after the cameras stopped rolling, rescued in quiet editing bays, far from the spotlight. You'd be surprised how many iconic action films were once labeled disasters. Some had incoherent plots, botched effects, or lacked energy altogether. But through clever restructuring, new sound design, altered music, or even removing entire characters, they were transformed into cinematic experiences audiences never suspected were once doomed. Some of these transformations were so effective, even the cast and crew admitted they didn't expect the final result to work. This list isn't about perfection. It's about survival. These are the films that stumbled and then soared, thanks entirely to the unseen craftsmanship of post-production teams who pulled them back from the brink. So, if you've ever wondered whether editing can save a sinking ship, let's explore 15 action movies that were saved in post-production and uncover how editing, sound, and structure turned failures into cult classics or even box office hits. Fact 1. Equilibrium. Equilibrium began as a low-budget sci-fi project with innovative ideas but awkward execution. The gun-kata sequences, though conceptually striking, appeared clumsy on raw footage. Editors reimagined every movement, slicing action into precise cuts and layering slow-motion effects. Sound design and a pulse-pounding electronic score synchronized perfectly with each action beat, creating a rhythmic visual poetry that belied the budget constraints. The film emerged as a stylish, engaging action feature. Equilibrium shows how post-production craftsmanship can elevate raw material, transforming a shaky shoot into a visually compelling and iconic cinematic experience. Fact 2. Die Another Day. The early cut of Die Another Day was weighed down by over-the-top effects and implausible plot elements. Invisible cars, extravagant ice palaces, and overextended sequences threatened to turn the film into a parody. Post-production reshaped the spectacle. CGI flaws were masked, pacing tightened, and climactic sequences were re-edited to heighten tension. Music and sound effects reinforced dramatic beats, turning otherwise absurd moments into thrilling cinematic experiences. The final release maintained the Bond flair while rescuing the film from the brink of ridicule, demonstrating that strategic editing can salvage even the most ambitious productions. Fact 3. Demolition Man. Demolition Man struggled to find its identity during production. The film veered unpredictably between satirical comedy and intense action, leaving early cuts chaotic and disjointed. In post-production, editors embraced the film's dual nature. Action sequences were streamlined, dialogue was timed for comedic effect, and futuristic visuals were highlighted to enhance the setting. Sound design accentuated contrasts between violence and absurdity, while ADR and music emphasized the satirical undertone. The end result was a cohesive, uniquely balanced film. Demolition Man emerged as both a parody and an action spectacle, proving that post-production can transform tonal uncertainty into a distinct cinematic voice. Fact 4. Street Fighter. Street Fighter was a troubled production. Jean-Claude Van Damme's performance was inconsistent. Raul Julia was ill but persevered, and the footage captured was uneven and tonally unstable. Post-production saved the movie by recontextualizing the action. Editors emphasized Raul Julia's performance, trimmed weaker takes, and enhanced action scenes with rapid cuts. Sound effects and musical cues were added to create rhythm and intensity. Although it did not achieve critical acclaim, the film became watchable and even enjoyable for fans of campy action. Editing turned a potentially disastrous shoot into a coherent, entertaining film. Fact 5. Mission Impossible 2. John Woo's sequel initially ran over 3 hours, with sprawling sequences and uneven pacing. Scenes lingered, melodrama diluted tension, and the film lacked a clear rhythm. In post, editors reshaped the narrative. Subplots were removed, fight sequences stylized with slow motion, and explosive moments timed with the musical score. Key emotional beats were preserved while the action gained momentum. The resulting film balanced spectacle with intensity, showcasing Wu's signature style. Mission: Impossible 2 demonstrates how decisive editing can turn a sprawling, chaotic shoot into a visually commanding experience. Fact 6. Blade. Blade was poised to be a modern superhero breakthrough. Yet the original final battle with Deacon Frost looked unconvincing due to early CGI limitations. Test audiences reacted poorly, threatening the film's success. Post-production intervened decisively. Editors restructured the climactic duel, emphasizing physicality and timing, while sound design intensified every shot. Footsteps, gunshots, and sword clashes were layered for impact. Music was remixed to enhance tension and rhythm. The film's tone shifted from questionable CGI spectacle to a stylish, dark, and compelling action experience. Blade's rise as a cult favorite owes entirely to the creative choices made in the editing room. Fact 7. Tango and Cash was plagued by an unstable production. Directors changed, stunts went awry, and early footage felt incoherent. Even Stallone and Kurt Russell's chemistry seemed lost amidst the chaos. In post-production, editors reconstructed the narrative, splicing dialogue from multiple takes and reordering action sequences for clarity. Prison breaks, shootouts, and comedic moments were carefully timed. The dynamic between the lead actors was emphasized through pacing and selective cuts. The final film, though still over the top, felt cohesive. Editing turned a potentially disjointed project into an entertaining buddy cop experience, proving the power of post-production intervention. Fact 8. Edge of Tomorrow. Early cuts of Edge of Tomorrow struggled with repetition. Tom Cruise's repeated deaths and resets made the story confusing, and pacing issues left test audiences weary. Editors approached the problem like game designers. Loops were tightened, redundant dialogue removed, and visual cues emphasized changes between iterations. Sound and music were realigned to signal progression, turning frustration into engagement. By carefully sculpting the structure in post, the film became a clever, readable time loop story. What seemed confusing on set was transformed into a tightly paced, exhilarating action experience, a direct result of meticulous editing. Fact 9. Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad faced chaos not just on set, but in the editing room. The original cut was darker and more psychological, but studio interference demanded a brighter, more frenetic film. A trailer company, not the original filmmakers, was tasked with restructuring the entire movie. Scenes were reordered, dialogue trimmed, and humor amplified. Color grading brightened the visuals, while music and sound effects reshaped tone, creating a frenetic, almost chaotic energy. Though critics were harsh, the film drew audiences with its spectacle and quirky characters. Post-production transformed a potentially incoherent movie into something commercially viable, proving that editing alone could dictate the final impact. Fact 10. RoboCop. When the first cut of RoboCop was presented, studio executives were shocked. Scenes were excessively violent, the tone was bleak, and the MPAA threatened an X rating. Early screenings suggested the film might never be released in its intended form. Post-production addressed both content and tone. Excessive gore was trimmed just enough to meet rating requirements, while satire and narrative clarity were enhanced. Sound design was layered to emphasize RoboCop's mechanical presence, and editing tightened pacing to highlight both action and irony. The result, a film that balanced violence with commentary, satire with spectacle. RoboCop became a cultural icon, its identity forged as much in the cutting room as on set. Fact 11. Escape from New York. The original opening of Escape from New York was unnecessarily long and confusing, slowing the narrative before the story truly began. A failed prologue threatened to undermine the entire film. John Carpenter and his team turned to post-production to fix it. Nearly 10 minutes of footage were removed, replaced with a concise title crawl and voiceover to provide context efficiently. Minimalist synth music was emphasized to create tension and atmosphere, guiding viewers through Manhattan's dystopian streets. The editing transformed the pacing and clarity of the story, giving Snake Plissken's character immediate gravitas. What had been a potentially confusing start became a defining cinematic moment, demonstrating the power of careful post-production restructuring. Fact 12. The Long Kiss Goodnight. When filming wrapped, The Long Kiss Goodnight felt cumbersome and uneven. Scenes dragged, tonal shifts distracted, and early screenings left audiences confused. The studio questioned whether the film could resonate at all. The editors intervened decisively. Action sequences were tightened, dialogue streamlined, and pacing was reshaped to maintain relentless momentum. Sound design became a key tool. Gunshots, footsteps, and music cues were carefully layered to heighten intensity. Snow-laden chase scenes gained rhythm, while key character moments were preserved and enhanced through careful trimming. The outcome was a tighter, more dynamic film. Geena Davis's performance as the lethal yet vulnerable assassin was accentuated, allowing the character to shine. Though box office numbers were modest, the film's cult status today owes entirely to the creative rescue in post-production. Fact 13. Hard target. John Woo's first American feature faced skepticism from the studio and confusion on set. His vision of balletic violence clashed with Hollywood's expectations, leaving the rough cut uneven and diluted. Post-production became his battlefield. Editors restored slow-motion sequences, restructured fight scenes, and amplified key visual motifs. A new, percussive score underscored the tension and emotion of every action beat. One standout sequence, Van Damme kicking a flaming oil barrel, was elevated into a cinematic moment, a highlight that could have been lost entirely in the original cut. While the final release remained somewhat constrained by studio demands, it captured Woo's signature style. Hard Target proved that even when a shoot is chaotic, post-production can reclaim the director's voice, transforming near failure into a striking action showcase. Fact 14. Universal Soldier. Initially, Universal Soldier faltered in early screenings. The pacing dragged, tonal shifts confused audiences, and test reactions were lukewarm at best. Studios were alarmed, fearing the project could fail entirely. In response, the editing team went to work, reshaping the narrative rhythm. Fight sequences were tightened, slow moments trimmed, and the climactic battle between Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren was recut for maximum tension. But the most transformative changes came in sound design. Explosions, gunfire, and footsteps were amplified. The synth-heavy score infused energy into every frame. Through these adjustments, a film that had seemed flat became visceral and gripping. Critics were mixed, but the home video and later cult reception proved that editing alone had salvaged the movie, giving it life far beyond the set. Fact 15. The Replacement Killers. Chow Yun-fat's Hollywood debut promised elegance, intensity, and precision. Yet the first cut felt fragmented, like two conflicting movies stitched together. A standard crime thriller clashing with stylized Eastern aesthetics. Even the lead actor reportedly grew frustrated by the lack of cohesion. The rescue came entirely in post-production. Editors stripped away subplots, focused on the central narrative, and redefined the visual tone. High-contrast lighting, desaturated colors, and carefully timed slow-motion sequences transformed the streets into a hypnotic noir playground. Music was reworked to heighten suspense and emotion, turning otherwise mundane moments into visual poetry. Although it did not dominate box office charts, the film earned cult status. Its survival and impact weren't due to performance or direction on set, they were carved in the editing bay. The Replacement Killers stands as a testament to how post-production can define the essence of a film. Bonus fact: The 13th Warrior. This film didn't make the main list, but its journey is remarkable. The 13th Warrior faced production turmoil from the start, conflicting visions, reshoots, and a runtime that ballooned uncontrollably. Early cuts were incoherent, leaving audiences puzzled in test screenings. The author Michael Crichton stepped in during post-production, overseeing both restructuring and reshoots. Entire sequences were removed, reordered, or recontextualized. The musical score was adjusted to give a more mythic tone, while sound design added weight to battle scenes. Editors polished pacing and clarified narrative threads, making the chaotic footage into a coherent cinematic experience. Though not a box office success, The 13th Warrior became a cult favorite, demonstrating that thoughtful post-production can rescue even the most troubled productions and transform them into memorable stories. Behind the explosions, stunts, and epic sequences, it's often post-production that shapes what audiences ultimately see. Editors, sound designers, and colorists quietly craft the rhythm, tone, and impact of every scene, sometimes turning near disasters into classics. Which of these films surprised you the most with their resurrection in post-production? Were the transformations miraculous or merely clever fixes? Share your thoughts. The editing room might just be the true hero behind the action.